We're trying to find other ways to get Bitcoin spread a little bit more further and dispersed a little wider. We gave out some sats, for people that were attending that came to and graduated from the course. And we were trying to find other creative ways to make sure that we get it out there and get that moving from the
Yeah.
merchant adoptions.
Adam, it's your first time in El Salvador, right?
Second.
Second. Okay.
The first time down here inspired everything I've been doing for the past 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, I was thinking it was your first time. So, did we meet the first time that you came down here, or
No,
did I only talk to you on? I think we talked on Twitter Spaces when we were talking about your project. But did we meet in person before?
We did not. I met Chimbera last time.
Okay.
So I went out to lunch with him and then went over to him and Lexi's house for dinner. He cooked us a great steak dinner, me and my wife, and just kind of explored the area with him. And that inspired Bitcoin Victoria Falls. So that was, yeah, so I did not meet you last time, but I did spend some time with Ramon.
Okay. Yeah, and you guys were one of the Circular Bitcoin Economy projects that got one of the grant distributions in the last round of grants that we did. And so I think that's what we did, a Twitter Spaces talking about that. But would love for you to share with the audience kind of a little bit of your backstory, who you are, how you got into Bitcoin, and then where the Victoria Falls project came out of that. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the details of what's happening there and what you're excited about.
Yeah, so I guess it all starts from my love for international travel and culture. My mom hosted exchange students when I was younger, and so we always had people from different countries in our house for a year, and just really was passionate about that as I grew older, of just going and exploring and learning and understanding people that are different from me and grew up different from me. And so that's kind of really the evolution of it. I got into Bitcoin from kind of the Austrian School of Economics and studying, listening to people like Tom Woods and people like Ron Paul, and that kind of led to me studying Bitcoin from like 2016 to 2022, where for those 6 years I was more or less just kind of researching, studying, listening, observing. And then in 2022, I decided to come down to El Salvador to see what was happening after the legal tender laws and after seeing what you guys were doing with Bitcoin Beach. So yeah, so that's kind of the kind of time period from, being a young kid and having exposure to, other cultures and other people, and then leading into kind of studying Bitcoin in that lens and kind of thinking about it on a global scale.
So you saw what was happening in El Salvador, specifically in El Zonte or Bitcoin Beach. A lot of people refer to it. And then was the idea like, hey, I want to go replicate this somewhere? And where did Victoria Falls fall into that? How did that all come together?
Yeah, it's a good question because I actually came down here just to observe. Like I like going into a local community and just observing, learning, seeing what's going on, and that's kind of how me and my wife approach travel. It's how my mom approached travel when we were kids and going internationally was and it was made more possible with things like Airbnb as things went on, where you can stay in a local community or stay in a local town and not necessarily be in the tourism district. So. Same thing here. My wife and I came down. We brought our dog, and we stayed in Zonte for a week and a half, and then we went to Santa Ana for a week and a half. Booked an Airbnb and hiked the volcano. But it was really just an opportunity to observe. And the idea for the Bitcoin circular economy actually came while I was in El Zonte. And when I was meeting with Chimbera and when I was observing what was going on, I was like,
hey guys, just a brief interruption. We'll get back to the exciting show here, but I just want to really ask a favor that you guys could make sure that you're subscribed if you're watching this on YouTube. If you are listening to this on a podcast, please take a second and review this. You don't even have to write a lengthy review or anything at all. Just click the number of stars that you want to give us. It really helps us in the algorithms to make sure people are finding out about what's happening here. All right, back to the show.
I have a lot of international connections. I can go and do this somewhere and help to seed one of these and operationalize it. And it just inspired kind of, I've got a pretty secure fiat job. My mom, works is the CEO and founder of a nursing education company. And so my Bitcoin journey was was a desire to give back philanthropically. And so that's kind of where everything came from and launched out of that trip in 2022.
And why Victoria Falls, and specifically on the Zambia side?
Yeah, that's another good question. So I've been donating to an NGO called Free Haven Community Initiative since 2016. The founder and executive director, Samantha, knew my sister from a church organization in the Maryland, Delaware area. And so I'd been donating and sponsoring a child in that organization since 2016 and following closely the work that they were doing in Zambia. And it's a great organization, very well run. And so when my mind went to where do I, feel like I can make an impact, I thought about their work and I thought about that NGO in Zambia. And so I started meeting with them and kind of talking about the ideas and getting a little bit more into kind of what do you guys think about Bitcoin? And they were very encouraged by the fact that I wanted to do some work in the local area, but they were more, I originally thought it would be integrated with the NGO from the get-go, and they kind of wanted me to build it parallel and then see where the integration comes after the fact.
And was did they have just like concerns that, that there's reputational risk because there's been scams with Bitcoin, or it was just too complex for them, or why do you think that they wanted to see that?
I think it was less scams and more just reputation risk of the unknown. I just joined the board of that organization actually, and really excited about that. I just joined the board, and I'm the treasurer there as well now. So, it's still early days, and I'm not looking to come in and push anything. I'm looking to come in and observe, just like I did in El Zonte, and see where we can help the organization overall by considering stuff like Bitcoin. So I think just they wanted some time to process, learn, like everybody does, right?
Yeah.
And they're going through that process themselves. And some of the staff at the NGO have taken the Me Premier Bitcoin course that we offered, and so there's been an openness to learning, but not ready to jump off the deep end right at the initial onset. And I think that's fair.
Okay. So in parallel, you've set up some other things in that same community.
Exactly.
Probably with crossover with similar people that are being served by the other organization. So tell us a little bit about that and what you guys have going on there.
Yeah, so I set out to just build a project and see what happens. And so I connected with Anita Posh from Bitcoin for Fairness, and then she connected me with their Lusaka branch and Deza. And he was able to help me find a teacher that was a Zambian, and that ended up being my co-founder, Humphrey. And so basically, Humphrey, I visited Zambia last year before the project kicked off this year in April. And Humphrey has been absolutely amazing and absolutely crucial. He's my right-hand man. He's the boots on the ground. He is the teacher and the community leader.
And is he originally from that community, or was he from the capital city and was commuting in, or I'm trying to remember?
Yeah, he's from the capital city.
Okay.
So he's from Lusaka, where the Bitcoin for Fairness Zambia team was doing a lot of work. And he was integrated with that community in Lusaka. And so he was originally, for the past 8 months, he was traveling part-time to Livingston to run the course and get the project off the ground. And then he would go back to Lusaka for a period of time. He has just moved full-time to Livingston. So we're really excited about that and kind of to see what that means for him being there full-time.
And Livingston is the town that is right at Victoria Falls?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So there's Victoria Falls is the falls itself. Mosiatanya is the and I'm probably butchering that, but that is the name, the original name for the falls. It means I think Falls of Thunder or something along those lines. And then Victoria Falls is the Zimbabwe, the town in Zimbabwe across the other side of the falls. So the falls and the Zambezi River create the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe. And then Livingston is the Zambia side of the falls and the town on that side.
And how big of a town is it?
Livingston's 170,000 people.
So it's a decent-sized city.
Decent-sized city, pretty sprawling. lots of fun things to do. I've been telling Bitcoiners, you got to come visit. Whitewater rafting, zip lining, safaris, national parks. Just, I mean, it's gorgeous. It's a great area of the world to visit and explore.
So do you guys see kind of replicating like the Bitcoin Beach focus on tourism there as part of the project? Is that kind of one of the things, the goals?
Yeah, we're trying to strike that balance, right? Because I've been talking with Herman a lot from Bitcoin Akazi, and striking that balance of the local circular economy versus the tourism angle.
Yeah.
I think there is very much a tourism angle to be had, but that transpires over time, right? Expats, tourists coming in, and so we don't want to put all our eggs in that basket,
Yeah.
but we want to make sure that we're supportive of that. If we have Bitcoiners
Well,
visiting,
the benefit of that is that becomes an injection of Bitcoin into the community in a way that the people can earn, and that's the healthiest way that the Bitcoin comes in, is people earning Bitcoin. So,
Absolutely.
but it's you don't want it to be the only focus, because obviously it is the local community that really ultimately you're trying to grow, and so figuring out a way that's going to meet their needs the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's the balance we're trying to strike, right? I mean, we're 8 months into the project. We've had a really good start with Me Premier Bitcoin and teaching that curriculum. We've graduated about 75 students. Our meetups are very well attended. We have meetups in the 40 to 50 people attending our meetups and learning. So we're getting the grassroots effort and the local support. And then I think, you augment that with tourists visiting the area that want to spend Bitcoin, and it's a recipe for success. So I think over the long haul, we'll kind of see exactly how that plays out, but both angles are really
Yeah.
kind of going to be supportive for us.
And it's a fairly new project, correct? It's how long have you guys been up and running?
Yeah, so I visited El Zonte in November 2022. So exactly 2 years ago, I was down here. I spent a year working with the Free Haven team, kind of just talking about my ideas and what the plans were. Spent 3 months visiting the area. Well, I wasn't there for 3 months, but 3 months kind of getting the teacher, getting Humphrey and setting that all up. And then about 8 to 9 months kind of since the project's officially been launched and since we've been teaching and going forward with it.
And so one of the first things of the project was launching the Me Premier Bitcoin curriculum and doing classes. And how often do those happen? And what's kind of the rhythm of life there for you guys on the ground?
Yeah, so we shortened their 10-week course to a 5-week course so that Humphrey, when he was traveling in from Lusaka, had some time to, he stayed for 5 weeks most times we were running the course. And we put 2 sessions, 2 chapters per week. So he would come in for 5
So you didn't
weeks.
really shorten the coursework, you just condensed it.
Condensed it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we ran 4 instances of it this year. We just completed our last one, and it was the largest graduating class yet. And then while he was in town for that 5 weeks, we would run a meetup. So it was basically monthly. He would go back to Lusaka for a couple weeks, and then he would come back. So we did 4 instances of that from April to now. And then we're hoping to run 6 to 8 courses next year, upping that with him being now local in the area, and we're going to do 12 meetups. So that's kind of the cadence.
And what's the motivation for the locals to take the course? What is kind of the driving reason behind them being willing to, set aside that amount of time to learn about Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean the kwacha is the currency there, and it's constantly losing purchasing power. It's not quite as bad as their neighbors in Zimbabwe, but they also see what's happening in Zimbabwe. And so, it's a challenging environment for them to constantly lose that purchasing power. And so they're very interested in retaining that, and, seeing kind of where that goes. There's also a lot of challenges on the ground right now with the energy grid. They are going through about 12 to 16 hours of blackouts a day right now. I was just talking with Eric from Gridless, because he met with the head of Tesco Energy, which is the Zambian state-owned energy company, recently, and he was telling me that the challenge was based off of their overbuilding of hydro, and then going through a drought and a non-rainy season. So the 2 primary challenges that I see right now are the energy, and how sparse that is at the moment for them. which is almost taking precedent to some of the financial challenges. But then you also have the Kwacha and the loss of purchasing power through the Kwacha.
Okay. And do you guys have any businesses onboarded there yet?
Yeah, we have about 4 to 5, so still early. I really see. I was talking with Herman about this, about where do we go for 2025, right?
Yeah.
We're Humphrey and I are really kind of planning for 2025 right now, right? With him just moving there, we're trying to he's going to the Africa Bitcoin conference, to Adopting Bitcoin Cape Town. We might try to get him out here for a period of time in January, and then it's going to be February. Let's get back into the curriculum and really pushing forward with our 2025 initiatives. Right now, we have about 4 to 5 merchants onboarded. We have one that is a tourism agency, and so he runs a lot of tours in the area, whether that's the whitewater rafting, the safaris, all that kind of stuff is you can pay in Bitcoin for that. We have a gentleman who graduated from our first class named Caswell, and he runs a taxi company, and so he's accepting Bitcoin for his taxi services. He has 3 taxis. Jolly Boys is a hostel in the area. It is owned by a Canadian gentleman named John, and it's where we host our meetups. And they've onboarded the restaurant within Jolly Boys to accept Bitcoin, and then they also accept it for accommodations. I'm trying to think. Oh, and then David Molinta, he does all of our printing, our T-shirts, he printed our workbooks. So he owns a printing shop in the area and accepts Bitcoin as well. So those are the 4 that are coming to mind off the top of my head. Yeah.
And are there any people, anybody in the community that's being paid in Bitcoin, or is there any way Bitcoin's being injected in? I know that's always the challenge, is to get that momentum started and get Bitcoin circulated in the community. Yeah,
so one of the things I've been very forthright about is that all of our expenses for the first year of the project were paid in, or 95% of them were paid in Bitcoin. The only one that was not was our classroom, and Humphrey managed to get the teacher onboarded, and now they're interested in accepting Bitcoin. So everything's been paid out in Bitcoin. Humphrey is the only employee that we have right now within the work that we're doing. But that's kind of what I was also kind of picking Herman's brain about a little bit, was because the NGO, we didn't integrate with them right away. We're trying to find other ways to get Bitcoin spread a little bit more further and dispersed a little wider. We gave out some sats, for people that were attending that came to and graduated from the course. And we're trying to find other creative ways to make sure that we get it out there and get that moving from the merchant adoption. So that's kind of that's part of the next phase.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, curious if there's any other things you want to cover. I'm not, because I haven't been there yet or haven't seen it. I hope to be there next year, hopefully. Come check it out. But is there any other things you want to talk about that you guys
I'm actually
are doing?
launching another project called Bitcoin Montserrat.
Okay.
It's a small island in the Caribbean near Antigua, about 4,000 in population. And so the story here goes that my buddy who I went to college with has been telling me about this island since college, how beautiful it is. His grandparents bought bought property on the island in the 70s. And
was it a former French colony, I'm
UK.
guessing? UK. Okay.
Yeah. And it was actually George Martin, who was the producer for the Beatles, built a recording studio on the island in the 70s.
Okay.
Some of the biggest albums of the 70s and 80s were recorded on Montserrat.
Really?
It was a thriving cultural scene, Earth, Wind and Fire, John Lennon, you name it. They were all going down there, staying for months at a time and recording albums on Montserrat. And about 13,000 in population at that time. And again, just there's this documentary on it called Under the Volcano, which you can watch, which really actually inspired my Bitcoin lens of this. So unfortunately, what happened is music transitioned from analog to digital in the 90s, and in the 90s as well. In 95 specifically, the Soufriere Hills volcano exploded on the island and wiped out the town of Plymouth, which was the capital, and made 2/3 of the island uninhabitable and at risk of the volcano going off again. And so the UK offered citizenship to everybody on the island who wanted it. And so it kind of dwindled in population to around 3,000. And so it's gone through some hard times after some thriving cultural
Yeah.
times in the 70s and 80s. And I kind of watched this documentary chronicling all of that. And I was like, how perfect would that be for a revival via Bitcoin? And then there's also the geothermal energy angle of the volcano. There's 2 geothermal wells drilled on the island that they haven't built a power plant for yet. And they're currently the highest cost of energy in the Caribbean because they're importing it all
Yeah.
via diesel and fuel. So been talking with a lot of people here, just kind of, I'm not, on the energy or mining side, but the implications for that island are very powerful in kind of reducing their energy costs. And then ultimately, the size of the island of about 4,000 to 5,000 in population is really interesting to me from a capacity perspective. How much,
Yeah.
your target, right? Your target
yeah.
is educating the whole island, right? So,
And I've found those smaller populations, especially if they're somewhat isolated, that's a more fruitful or more fertile ground for circular Bitcoin economies. So
yeah, Herman and I were just talking about that. Actually, he was encouraging me within the Bitcoin Victoria Falls project to really not think about it from 170,000 people, but really focus on specific geographic areas
Yeah.
within Livingston that this can kind of grow organically.
because the importance is the concentration, because then you have the network effect kick
Exactly.
in. So it's much better to have 10 stores on one street than like 20 stores spread like across a giant city, because then you don't get that network effect.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing in Livingston is there's this market called the Dwamba North Market where David's shop is, and we just like Bitcoin Akazi painted the shops, Lutando
Okay.
and all them.
Yeah.
We painted David's shop with the Bitcoin Victoria Falls logo, and we're looking to do some more shop painting on that in that market. And I was waking up the other day for the unconference, for the Me Premier Bitcoin unconference, and I had a message from David, and he said, since you painted my shop, I've informally educated 178 people that have asked about the painting. And so we might kind of zero in on that Dwamba North Market area and figure out what we can do to kind of geographically stay a little focused within the Livingstone community. But getting back to the Montserrat side of things, the exclusion zone kind of cutting off 2/3 of the island from being developed any longer, and really focusing in on the 1/3 of the island that's where people live and that can be developed, I think kind of really does feel attainable, right?
Yeah.
And given that energy is so difficult to export, almost impossible to do so in many cases, I think there's a large implication for what the possibilities are within that area of the world as well.
Oh, that's exciting. Have you, if people want to follow that, or have you set up a Twitter handle yet for that project?
Yeah, I think it's BTC Montserrat and Bitcoin Vic Falls is our Twitter handle
Okay.
for that. Those are the two there. I'm at Cowper Tweets, and then also on Nostr for myself and the Bitcoin Victoria Falls project, Bitcoin Victoria Falls at nostrplebs.com. Humphrey's very active on Nostr as well, so we keep a big profile on there, and he's at Bitcoin_diary on both X and on Nostr.
Okay.
Yep.
And people that would want to help support the projects there, is there a place where they can donate sats, or if they want to come volunteer on the ground, what's the best way for people to help and get involved?
Yeah, we have a Geyser Fund going for both projects. Again, we're kind of leading into launching Bitcoin Montserrat in 2025, and we're looking to really elevate Bitcoin Victoria Falls in 2025. I think we're looking for people that want to get involved in Livingston and in the Bitcoin Victoria Falls community. It's a beautiful area of the world. If you're a Bitcoiner and want to go on some safaris and travel, there's one, you can spend your Bitcoin there, but two, come and stay for a while and get get involved and come speak at one of our meetups. So I think Bitcoin Victoria Falls is very fertile for Bitcoiners to come and visit and explore and help us grow. And with Bitcoin Montserrat, I'm actually really looking for a teacher or co-founder who wants to help support the project and and help to find a community leader there. That's been a challenge. It's with 4,000 people. I haven't been able to find a Bitcoiner yet that's local. I do have some connections to the island through Bitcoin Policy UK. But I think if you know anybody in Montserrat or know of a Montserratan in the UK, let me know, especially if they're Bitcoin knowledgeable. So those are kind of the two areas that would be the most supportive as we kind of go into a new year here.
Awesome. Well, definitely encourage people to check them out and support them. Something just to put a bug in your ear, maybe for next year after the one of the African conferences, whether the Adopting Bitcoin in South Africa or the wherever they have the other what's the other conference?
The
they got
Africa Bitcoin Conference, I believe that's in December in Nairobi.
in Nairobi. Yeah.
Yep.
So maybe next year you try to plan like post that type of a trip to Victoria Falls where people can do whitewater rafting or go on the safari or something like that. Because I'm sure there's a lot of international Bitcoiners that are coming over there, and that's a long flight and everything to get there. You might as well take advantage of that and see another Bitcoin community, but also experience some of the beauty of Africa while you're there. So
Yeah, that's a
might be
great idea.
fun thing to do.
I like that because it's naturally that's what's happening here at
Yeah.
Adopting Bitcoin, right?
Oh, there's
a whole
all
bunch
these
of-
other side trips and stuff. It's great to see them, all kind of blossom around the conference.
Yeah, satellite events. And I know last year for Adopting Bitcoin Cape Town, they went and visited Akazi
Yeah.
and Bitcoin Witsend. And so, like adding another Victoria Falls satellite trip is the perfect idea.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate you coming in, and it was great to get to know you and see you face to face.
Yeah.
And we'll
Likewise.
definitely make it over to your side of the world over there and visit the project.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thanks, Adam.